Hello and welcome to the Energy Show number 101. It is I, Sylvia with an I, coming to you live from beautiful Eastbourne by the sea. And I thought today we're going to be just chilling, relaxing, being happy, and talking about one of my favorite subjects and some interesting experiences I've had last week, particularly with my Project Superstar, which is my happy birthday project, something that I've been wanting to do for a very long time and finally got to start doing that. And it concludes this coming Monday, the day before my birthday. So I'm very excited about that. Good morning, dear Alex and Chimazie. Wonderful to have you here with me this morning. Yeah, so what's been happening? That's an interesting question. So much has been happening. Project Superstar is really beyond fascinating. It's really interesting. It's probably the most advanced personal development method in the world today. Yeah, it is. We could say that it is. And I look forward to exploring this further in future times. But in the interim, we had some very interesting insights, and particularly about poetry. Now, the very first thing here, and that is really quite funny, and I'm sorry if I'm shocking you with this, but if you have ever written a poem, that makes you a poet. If you have ever written a poem, that means you are a poet. So it doesn't matter when you've written that poem. You could have written that at any time in your life, for any reason, for any purpose, that you sat down to write a poem and you finished your poem. That means that you are thereby a poet. Sorry, there's nothing I can do about that. So please repeat after me. I am a poet. Now, how does that feel? Make sure to install this in your self-concept and put it on your business cards from now on. You know, your name, and then underneath, whatever it is that you do, and then underneath you put poet. And notice how this will change the relationships with people from the get-go, regardless of what you do. And they will look at that, and then all of a sudden they will think of you differently. I'm going to say good morning to Tuba. Hello. Marina. Hello, dear Marina. Ilka. Hello, darling. Wonderful to have you here with me today. And of course, a wonderful hello to everyone who is watching the replay. And there is no time or space in the energy worlds. And so you are with us right here, right now, the same as everyone else. So, yeah, every person who has ever written a poem is a poet. So that in and of itself is really cool. And I love that. So I'm just going to tell the story how we got to this. Now, we have a participant in the research group for Project Superstar whose intent it is to create a better connection with their creative side, with their energy mind, previously known as the sub or unconscious mind, and in general to feel more connected with themselves in this incarnation at a better level, at a higher level, at a more complete level. So it's not just all about death and taxes. And this person sort of felt that they weren't creative or they were disconnected somehow. And it occurred to me to ask them if they had ever written any poetry. And at first they said, no, 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 no. That's not my thing. I don't do poetry. Oh, no, poetry. No, 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 no. And then all of a sudden they went, wait a minute. Actually, I did write songs for a band when I was a teenager. And I don't know if you can sense that, but when they said that, I just got this electric tingling through myself. And I just went, wow. And that's the time of life. That is the aspects we need to connect. You need to connect with before, life became all about death and taxes. There was a time in your life when you were writing poetry, because writing a song is poetry. Totally. Absolutely. Totally. If you wouldn't be writing a song, you'd be writing an article or an essay or a dissertation. But no, we're writing a song, and that is poetry. Poetry in motion, if you will. I kind of love that. Yeah, and that was exciting. And the person in question was very happy, and they could see the sense in that, and they were excited by it, to reconnect with that part of themselves that not only could write poetry, and this is where we're coming to this important part here. They not just wanted to write poetry, they actually needed to write poetry. They needed to express something, transmit something, say something in a way that is beyond the ordinary talk that we use for everything to do with death and taxes. The everyday. How are you? how's the family? How much are you earning? That kind of thing, that kind of language, that kind of talk. So we go to talking about this. What happens to a person when they all of a sudden feel this need and are making this movement here, this energy rising, this specific energy rising that needs an expression? And that's not an expression in shouting or in crying or in anything else, but it needs to be expressed in poetry, in words. See, I find that really interesting. The massive difference between us and the chimpanzees is the fact that we speak words, that we have language. We have this weird gene that all of a sudden seemed to have appeared from nowhere, and human beings started to talk, which is weird. But there we have it. We have this language thing going on. And what kind of energy states are causing a human being to stop speaking in ordinary everyday speech that everybody is always speaking and start speaking in a different way? Start talking in a different way. That is so interesting. I found that so fascinating. And really, I just cried out, well, clearly, poems are messages from your soul. Poems are messages from your soul. And when I said that, yes, that is, of course, it's not just poems. It's not just poems. There's more. I have woken up in the middle of the night and I needed to do a painting. This has absolutely happened to me. Oh, yeah. And I also woke up in the middle of the night and I had to make a sculpture. And I don't normally do this, but I just feel the need here to do that and bring my little guy here into focus if we can. Hello. I had to literally wake up in the middle of the night and make a humanoid shape and put mirrors on it and create the Mirror Man. That's, to me, the similar thing to all of a sudden needing to write a poem. And here we may wonder. I say all of a sudden, as though it's coming from nowhere. Where does this come from? It's not all of a sudden. It is what is causing our soul to start speaking in that way, to be sending these messages that often years can go by before we actually understand what it means. Again, this perfect example took me absolutely forever to figure out what this mirror man was all about. Star matrix, the positive events. It's just a fascinating thing. And with the energy paradigm, so we have this living energy body, and this living energy body has the heart, the energy mind, and the immortal soul as a part of it. It just makes sense that when there's something going on in that energy system, that affects us in a very specific way, not randomly, not the muses, these strange angels swooping around and throwing ideas at us. And I just love the thought that all real art, the art that comes in this way, where it's not about wanting to make it, it's not about doing it because you've got hell's better to do. It's that you have to do that because you can do no other. And those are messages from the soul. So, oh, that's nice. Look here. Chemazier says, I am a poet. Excellent, 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 excellent. And what does Ilka say? Ilka says, I will from today write poet under my work. I think that's absolutely correct. Anything else would be incorrect or an omission. So I think that's completely right. Yeah. Anybody who writes a poem is a poet. I would like to point out that it doesn't mean you're a good poet, or that you make your living as a poet, or that other people say that you're an amazing poet. That's all completely immaterial. The key thing is that if you write a poem, then you're a poet. And I really do feel that I have changed the world for the better today by having more people understand that they are a poet and say it out aloud and not be ashamed of it and not think it's weird or strange, but to accept that this is a part of being a real, proper human being, not just some kind of weird, biomechanical robot. That's just, I think that's just wonderful. And also the idea that all art comes from the soul. All proper art comes from the soul. And we had an interesting discussion there about, like, it's all writing from the soul. No, it's not. I mean, when you're writing a how-to article, that's not from your soul. You can write that from your heart, heartfelt, but it's not a message from your soul. There is an actual noticeable difference in these messages. This is the only way I can call it. These messages that are sent from the soul, and that we take down and turn them into music, or we turn them into art, or we turn them into a poem. That there's something extremely precious about them. That they're really important. They're important for us to engage with, important for us to try and understand. Not just write them down, and leave them, but to actually come back to them and try and understand them, to try and open up a dialogue with our own souls. I think that's just such a marvelous idea. And I have to admit that I also found that I had, in my own, my own self-concept, my own experience, my own life, I had completely disrespected and underestimated my poems. because I come from an upbringing where poetry is possibly the worst thing that you can do. It's the most useless thing. It's the one that earns the least amount of money, earns the least amount of respect, earns the least amount of support or acclamation or anything like that. And I don't think that's so different today. Imagine somebody asking a young child, even today, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And the child says, honestly and sincerely, I want to be a poet. And you can just imagine mothers and grandmothers and fathers and uncles and the brothers and sisters starting to laugh and take the piss, of course, of course, of course. And yet, it's not just for ourselves, these messages from the soul. Real messages from the soul are universal, and then they speak to other people's souls and might wake them up, might, I don't know, cause a reaction in the person who's reading the poem or seeing the painting. And something stirs inside of them, something magical, something that they cannot feel in any other way or in any other place. And I think that is then the soul of the poet or the artist talking to us, to our souls. And our souls respond to that by resonating, by becoming more present. And somehow this presence of our own soul, the awakening of our own souls, feels amazing, feels wonderful, feels just wonderful. Something right. That's a good word for it. Something right has happened. Something right. And I think that should be encouraged and respected. And I offer my apologies for having just absorbed this idea that poetry is pointless, worthless, with, my daily bread as a child. Where I lived, that was so. That was the belief. But the exact opposite is true. This is a 180-degree reversal. Messages from our souls are the most precious gift we have to give. The most precious gift we have to give. And they must also be, in so many ways, the most personal gift we have to give. So something that I'd love to know from you guys here in the chat today is, have you had that experience where you got this message, this real uprising, and you had to speak it or write it down or create something from it? Do you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these moments, these energy states when your soul is starting to speak to you? Have you had this experience? This I would love to know. And also for people who are watching later, and also my live chat right now, come back to the video afterwards, and I really invite you to post a poem that any aspect of you has written in the comments. I would absolutely love to have some messages from your soul to be expressed underneath the video in the comments. And so that people, when they come and look at the video, they can read these. And I really think that a big part of this is that we wouldn't be saying it out aloud if we weren't meant to share it with other human beings. You got Knights in White Satin idea of somebody sitting in their bedroom and they're writing poetry. Letters are written, never meaning to send. But see, I absolutely believe that they should be shared with others. That there's no need to ever even say it out aloud, never mind picking up a pencil or putting the fingers to the keyboard, to writing it down, if it wasn't meant to be shared, if that wasn't part of the mission, if you will, that it wasn't a part of your, I even want to say your reason for being here on earth, to share your soul messages with others, and not just leave it to the poets of the ages or the religious writers of the ages. That we somehow went wrong there in discouraging our people, our children, everyone, to tell us their soul messages. Now, one of the reasons that we have this poverty of ideas and stories is because not enough people are sharing their soul messages with others. Because if they did, you know, the other kids in the class would laugh at them, or the brothers and sisters would laugh, or, you know. So, yeah, I really, really invite you, and Sylvia, I invite you too, to come back to this video after the live stream is over and share a poem. Share a poem that you'd like some other people to read. You never know who's going to stumble across this here on YouTube, on my small channel. But I just love the thought to just for today, just here and now, create this space and invite you to share your messages from your soul with me, with the other guys who follow this channel, and any visitors from the future who are looking through the comments and are loving this. So I am so delighted that I came to this insight of the simple thing. Poems are messages from your soul, and that makes them precious. That makes a poet a normal human being, as they should be, which is, I think, is just great, instead of some sort of crazy mad idiot. It adds so many poets to the multitude of poets across time and space. I used to watch a TV show called Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and for all of the length of its run, there was only one single girl who stood up against the forces of darkness. Now, there was this rule in any generation, there's only one Slayer is being born. And right at the end of this show, another person went back and changed the rule and said that instead of just one single girl having to fight all the powers of darkness, every girl gets to be a one who fights the power of darkness. And all over the world, all these young girls awakened and, and embraced this superpower. And I think we should do that with poems and with poets. And to get everybody who's ever written a poem, under whatever circumstances that happened, that they got this upwelling and they could do no other but to write it, that they all get to stand up and say, I am a poet. That we change a ground rule somewhere in the multiverse, and all of a sudden we're not just left with these few poets, but everybody is a poet. And that in and of itself could change the world, because I feel that the messages from our souls are super important for us human beings. Oh, hello there, Francesca and Deborah. Welcome. Deborah's from Malaysia. Let's have a look. Deborah says, hello from Malaysia. I loved watching Buffy too. Yes, I did. I thought that was a very, very good, very, very good TV show. Many themes and many well thought out things. But that changing the rule thing, that going back to the men in the sandals and saying, okay, I'm going to break that rule and we're going to have a different rule. And I feel like that when I say about awakening all the poets in the world to, yeah, just acknowledging that and just saying that I am a poet. I'd also like to invite you, if you're ever at a party and it's going well, just say, has anybody here ever written a poem or a song? Something like that, and see how many people put their hands up, and do that little game with them where you say, oh, you realize that if you've written just one poem in your entire life, that means you're a poet. And you've got to say that now, I am a poet. It doesn't matter if everybody laughs. Pass it on. It's important. Ah, I see, Deborah. I'm a poet, and I can believe that because of reading your works. Yeah, you can believe that completely. I mean, look, some guy spends his entire life working hard for the community, being a good family father, and then just he murders one person this one time. Pulls out a gun, shoots the guy in the head. This one time, 1 second in his entire life. And what is he? He is a murderer. This is a general way in which we judge people. Okay, some people say that's really not fair, but it's the way we do it. So if you've written one poem, that makes you a poet. End of. Quod erat demonstrandum. As I said, doesn't mean you're a good poet. Doesn't mean that other people like what you have to say. Doesn't matter. That is immaterial. Francesca. Hey, I am a poet and I always have been. Yes. See, this is also interesting that you should say that. See, I think we come into the world as poets. I do. I think that children are natural poets and they kind of experiment with language in their own way so that when they come to the real big sort of energy movements in when they're hitting puberty, that and these all these other things come online, that they turn often to poetry in order to stabilize themselves, to express themselves. So this is an ongoing process. And then, like with the person that was on my research team for Project Superstar, and then somehow it stops. All of a sudden it stops. I don't know what took over. Possibly going to university and being completely overloaded with work and thinking and talking about these abstract subjects. But somehow the space for poetry just shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank until it disappeared. And now here we are, over 40 years later, and the person feels that they're missing out on something, that there's something that should be there but is missing. And what is it? And how can I get it back? How can I regain that? And connecting with those star aspects who were writing poetry is a wonderful thing for anybody at any time, anywhere. Good morning, Marianne. Yeah, good morning, Marianne. We're talking about poems and poetry. And that if you've written one poem in your life, that means you are a poet, and you have to acknowledge this and say out aloud, my name is Marianne, and I am a poet, and accept that as your fate in life, which is a great way to start. But let's just go back to why the messages from the soul are really important. Now come back to my friend here, my little friend. So I wake up in the middle of the night. I need to make this thing. I have literally no idea why, but I'm told that I must make this thing. It must be done. It must be done. So I get up and I make it. And then, how many years later? 15 years later? 15 years later, I get it, what that message was. It was about that people aren't made up of trauma, they are actually made up out of high positive events. That's all that matters. That's what builds your soul, what feeds your soul, what makes your soul strong and happy, and also, make it easy for the soul to transition without the physical body later on in life. This is Star Matrix. My soul was trying to tell me about Star Matrix. Took me 15 years to figure it out, but that is a really positive contribution. Star Matrix is brand new, and I admit to being overwhelmed by it because it's just so amazing. Strange thing, but what can you say? It's brand new, but it has already made so many people so much happier. It's brought families together, it's brought old friends together, it's brought brothers and sisters together. It's been brilliant, brilliant. It's brought smiles to old people's faces and it's given them new hope. It has been just such a wonderful thing. And that was a work of art, a message from my soul. And without that, we would not have had Star Matrix. These are not unimportant messengers. They're not unimportant. They are not like less important than the latest study on God knows what, in God knows what context. They are super, super important and they need attention. And first of all, I guess your attention, you need to go back to your poems and have a look. And of course, we need to write new poems. Ooh, Marianne says, I am a poet. That's right. So that needs to go on your business card. Managing, so your name, Marianne Maywold, managing director, and underneath that it says poet. I love that. I would love to see that, more of that. And then you hand a business card to somebody else at some strictly business meeting, and they're looking at that and they go, whoa. And all of a sudden are looking at you in a slightly different way. And I think that's just a wonderful thing. Okay, let's see what Francesca says. I feel it's key not to give up on poetry, on our dreams, on our souls. Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more if I had two heads. Really. You're so, so right, Francesca. The people who have carried this connection with the love and the joy of the other realms, if you want to call it that, through their lives, they have somehow kept a connection with this. And I'm not talking necessarily about people who felt this so strongly that they needed to make a career of it, and that they fought everybody in the world, who tried to put them on a different path to actually become poets and writers and artists and creators of cartoons or whatever, in whichever way, musicians, in whichever way this soul desire expressed themselves in them. Not just those people, but all those people who, I don't know, collect Star Wars toys, even as an adult, who have kept a connection with this love and joy of being so much more connected to the realms beyond death and taxes. That's it. People who have really felt the need to step outside death and taxes and do something else, or else they would simply go insane. All those people are invited too. There's so many more of us than we will ever know because we just don't talk about it. We don't ask the questions. We don't embrace it, invite it. There is an army of people just like us who are, who, who have so much power in their messages, in their personal contributions to the world that have not yet been heard. And I would just love for, us all to get together and make the world a better place. Ah. Deborah says, I watch to thank you because of having read your words and putting them to practice. I saved myself from a very bad anxiety attack, from a bad heartache. Thank you so much, Sylvia. I use emo. Fantastic. Welcome. Welcome to the wonderful world of modern energy. And look, when we start taking our energy bodies seriously and we pay attention, and this is so important, pay attention. So I was talking about that there is a very specific thing that happens in a human being when a very specific kind of energy rises up in you, and it needs to be expressed. It needs to be expressed. And this is what creates real art. And that is an experience that isn't only being had by the few and far between. It's an experience that I believe every human being has had. Every human being has felt that. Every human being somewhere in their lives, be it as children, be it as young adults, be it in the middle of the greatest tantrums of sexual awakening, or when they fell in love and all of a sudden just had this, oh God, shall I compare thee to a summer's day moment, or even when you're in love and talking to somebody, this experience that something came up and you said words that were so romantic, so poetic, you could hardly believe that they came from you. Pete, this is a real lived experience. And when we, talk in terms of EMO, energy in motion, this is exactly energy in motion. It's kind of predictable. It's not random. We could investigate this. We could research this. It's just so wonderful. Oh, this is awesome. Francesca says, "Let's change the world one poem at a time." I'm going to give a round of applause to that notion. Yes, change the world one poem at a time. Oh, yeah. So I'm glad you are getting the sense of what happened there with Project Superstar, how what a big deal that was, and also for me, like, okay, so it's easy for me to write poems. Ugh, so I hate saying that. Hate saying that. But you do have to bear in mind that I have written so much in my life. I've written so much in my life that, of course, I'm a highly experienced writer. Of course, I'm a highly experienced writer. And I don't have to wait for this movement when you are forced against your will. And that's so funny because this is it. You're forced against your will. Oh, I don't want to write poetry. So you are writing these words down. You are writing them now. When it's not about being forced against your will, but you're actually a willing participant in this game, and you're wanting more energy flow, more information from your soul. I mean, that's then a whole other story. And this is where we come to the setups. We can ask questions. We can ask the soul to tell us something that we want to know more about. And that's, well, that's a whole different ball game. I used to use a setup for a long time because I just love it so much. And I got such wonderful responses from my soul. My setup was, write me a story, tell me a song. Make it loud and make it strong. Declare our future, yours and mine. And I would say that, and immediately the stream would start up. We stand at the edge of the world. There is no need to be afraid. Just spread your wings and raise them high and wide and slide into the waiting times of beauty and of splendor. Whew. Oh, thank you very much, dear Energy Mind. And thank you very much, dear soul, for sending me this lovely little sensation there. Trouble is that rhetorical questions are not understood by either the Energy Mind or whoever else is listening. So I had to give a little, I got a little sensation there, which was nice and short. Clearly, my Energy Mind knew that we're on Sunday live on the Energy Show, so we couldn't have an hour and a half there of streaming some really fabulous hypno dream or such, or a hypno solution for that matter. So yeah, it's time to experiment with poetry, to awaken all the poets in the world, all the poets in the world. And yeah, defeat the darkness with poetry and the power of the soul. I think that's really, really, yes. Let's, Ilka says, I will keep Francesca's statement as a claim if she allows. It's wonderful. Of course, I am pretty sure that Francesca will be delighted if that. Let's change the world one poem at a time. I challenge you all to post that on your social media feed. Go for it. Let's do something poetic. Alex says, I love that feeling of a poem brewing. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. This as this starts to build up, you can sense it. From here on upwards, you can start to feel it. It's coming. Oh my God, it's coming. And it's really amazing. And then the bow breaks and the sentence, the words, or if you're writing music, it's exactly the same thing, or painting. It sort of comes, it just comes and flows through you. And it's such a fantastic experience. So important. So it's so important, and it is what so many people are missing. They don't know where to search for it. They don't know that. They're not aware of this. They think it's all about material world, good death and taxes, as I call it. That's what it's all about, and it's not. There are other realms that ache, that people are dying to have, that they should be added to our lives, our conception of life, which change everything, which make everything better. It's no good trying to move through life without spirit. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to renew my call. Please come back to this video and put a poem under it. I do not know what the length regulations are for comments on YouTube. But seriously, I would love to read the messages from your soul. And I'm being quite selfish because I know that as I read through such things, there'll be some ping, 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 ping in my thing. And then I get an idea. And then I've got something new to talk about on the next energy show, which is something I'm looking forward to most wonderfully. All right, guys, so that was fantastic. I would invite you very much now to just join me in the heart position. Let's take a deep, deep breath together. And I'm quite happy today to call this thing that I like to say, let's call it a poem. Let us call it a poem because it is a poem. It's not an affirmation or a prayer or all these other words. It's a poem. Let's say my poem. together. I have a beautiful, I'm sorry, apologies. I have an amazing physical body, an amazing physical body. I have a beautiful mind. I have a radiant living energy body. I am a multidimensional being in the oceans of energy, and my happiness matters. Woohoo! At the end of that, I like to say woohoo and give a little round of applause, because that's the truth. If nothing else, that is the truth, and it's yes. And let's call it a poem, the modern energy poem. Let us do the modern energy poem together, and that feels so much nicer. Ah. Francesca says, we are on the high cliff of longing at the threshold of times. Let's change the world one poem at a time. Woohoo! Thank you so much for being here with me, for taking part of this fabulous, fabulous trip we are all on called life. And I wish you a wonderful, wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you here again with me. And let's see where this journey will take us. Lots and lots of love to you. Ah, Linda, hello there. You're very, very welcome. Lots of love to you, and I look forward to seeing you for next week's energy show. Bye for now. Bye. Lots of love.